There's been a lot lately about one of the guys we've talked about on here a lot, Travon Walker, possibly going number one overall in the NFL draft. Um, I've talked about this, as I've said a lot. I hate when people say I've talked about this, but I tend to say that myself a lot. But Trayvon's a guy that I got a chance to see in 2018 as a high school player. You could see it that day that he was a gifted player. I'm not sure, that I would suspect he would be a top five NFL draft pick at that moment, but it was pretty clear that he could be a top first round guy. What's happened over the last month is a good is a good way to amplify just how well Kirby and company have done over time, developing players, putting them in the right position, and then letting the play speak for itself. When you think about what Travon did during his time at Georgia, he was not asked to do particular things a ton. He was asked to do one or two things very well, and he did those things very well. But if you were asking him to rush the passer, that wasn't necessarily something that was common that he did. So that was a knock on him coming out of the Alabama game, I guess, or the end of the season, whatever you want to call it. Now, over time, scouts and everybody in the private workouts has shown have been able to see just what Trayvon can do, and it is pressure the passer. It is get around the corner. It is make plays like we see in DAWGSTRUCTION. Uh, just about how impressive he is. These guys are not going to be there anymore. Two of the three guys on the screen, they're going to be gone. That was a hellified defensive line. But it says something about Kirby's program that someone who does not have gaudy numbers continues to mature their way up the draft board, and the draft stock is going higher and higher for Travon. Why? People are seeing his raw athleticism. They're getting to talk to him in person. Now, how this works typically in the college level is uh, programs have the capability, if they want to open up practice to NFL scouts, they can do that if they want to, or they don't. Kirby says that they have done that the entire time. Problem was in 2020, you had all sorts of restrictions with COVID. In 2021, there was still a lot of that going on. So a lot of people haven't seen Travon in person the way they would have if he played in 2016, 17, and 18. Okay, so they really got to see him as a young guy in 19, and then everything kind of changed on the draft boards. Excuse me, for the draft, the way people drafted. He lost a whole year of scouts seeing him in person, um, and that matters. Okay, but now people are seeing him, talking to him, and having spent time with him and his family, his father. You're dealing with a no bullshit assessment and situation of his you know of his situation at Georgia and beyond. You get the ability to talk to Travon, who is a bright guy, um, and who has been extremely disciplined in his time at Georgia, and has given himself the opportunity to go in the top five, possibly number one overall. I do think the close of the season helped Georgia out quite a bit. Excuse me, Georgia and Travon quite a bit. Obviously, helped Georgia win the national championship. But for Travon, the way that Aiden Hutchinson played against Georgia's offensive line was, he didn't matter. Walker was a terror in those final two games of his career at Georgia, and I'm telling you right now, um, there was not a certainty in the middle of the season that he would leave. There was not a certainty that he would leave. That was something that was being assessed at the time, understandably. But the sack against Alabama in the national championship game, the tackles against Michigan, only had two, but they mattered. And he was not asked to do a lot in terms of production. He was asked to do what he was supposed to do well. There's no game that he played where he had more than five tackles in a game in 2021. That didn't mean he wasn't a hell of a player. He was. He had a fumble recovery against Tennessee. He had a half a sack against Charleston Southern. Same with Kentucky. He had the sack against Clemson. Had the sack against Missouri. Had the sack against Auburn. Had the sack against Alabama. We talk about sacks. They matter. They end games. They change the trajectory of games. You know, Travon in his time at Georgia has never exploded off the stat sheet, right? But when you're asked to do a particular thing, and that's what you're asked to do, that means your side of the ball is going to be much less challenged, and therefore you don't have the capability to make tackles. It wasn't different when he was at Upson Lee, and folks would run away from him. So they moved the staff at Upson Lee moved him to middle linebacker, and then you're watching this behemoth um, rove around with serious speed between the hashes. And in high school, you know, that's a pretty decent chunk of the field. I am almost Travon's size. I am his height, but he's got about 30 pounds on me, actually 45. And I can assure you, people our size don't move the way he does. He is not a normal person in that way. His father's a Marine. Mother was gifted athletically too, from what I understand. The whole family is. Um, but what's moving him up is the ability for people to see him in person. I do believe that meeting him matters a lot. For Georgia, this is proof positive that what Kirby and them are doing to win football games also gets your guys drafted for sure. I mean, I don't have it on the screen, and me clunking around searching and pecking to figure it out, it's going to take me too long. But I will tell you right now that in these two classes, with these two draft, well, they are draft classes, you're going to have in the top 33 in back-to-back years probably 6 or even 7 total guys that are drafted. That's a lot. Now, those are not all first-round guys, because Stokes, I think, was not a first-round guy, if my memory serves correct. But either Stokes or the other corner from 2021 draft were not both taken in the first round, but they were both in the top 35 or whatever it was. Now you have the capability of Walker, Davis, Scene, and Wyatt and Dean could all go in the first round in theory. But it looks pretty certain that Walker will. And all those guys, none of them had these unbelievable numbers because they were all making tackles. They were all making plays. They were all doing what they had to do. It looks to me, not being a professional NFL scout, it does look to me like you could get a lot of value out of Travon Walker. And that's really what you want in the draft. You want to get as much for your draft pick as your position, bang for your buck, as you can get. He will be used more than Jordan Davis, probably. But, you know, how does he fit with where he'll get drafted? That's the real question with Travon. And, you know, you look at the Jags, and I don't look at the Jags because they're trash, okay, and they have been for a long time. And hiring Urban Meyer confirmed that to me. But poor Trevor Lawrence, I mean, look, I don't know, but if it were me, I wouldn't take 2 offensive skill guys in the first round. And I believe they did that. Someone can correct me, and that may have been their first 2 picks. That's not how you build a franchise. You build it with big guys, and then you go get your skill guys right after that. You can draft them soon thereafter. But guys like Travon, Jordan, to some degree Devontae, Jalen Carter, these are guys you're going to need to draft them. That's who makes plays. That's why you can't run, not just at Georgia, but in the NFL. It's guys like Travon. So I'm not surprised that he's moving up. Hey, make sure you're checking us out. We got a surprise coming for you with DAWGSTRUCTION this coming week. Stay tuned. I'll have that announcement soon.